Oh, it's slow tonight.
You there, TV? TV, you look like you're frozen to me. I don't know whether I should just start my own show, but you're frozen. Maybe I'll just jump out.
Are you back? Oscar, you've gone again. OD, we're having a little glitch. Things aren't looking rosy. We might just try this again. We do apologise. We're having some little glitches. Hello?
Hello?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you, but you had frozen a moment ago.
I don't know what's going on. We're having some strange little beasties. So anyway, shall we start again? This is spring selling season WA, up and away. You know, I should record this sometimes because this could be just so silly. Episode 69 of Property Avenue WA, and sometimes it goes well and sometimes it doesn't go well. But we're having some little issues tonight, but hopefully that's not the case for the rest of the evening. But Property Avenue WA, it's an interesting time. I'm Tony Viner, he's Oscar D'Souza, and what we're all about is just focusing and talking about property in WA. And we go through a range of topics, and tonight we're going to have a look at just seeing what is going on with the silly season, as we say, the springtime. And Oscar's going to go through and review and provide his stats and do a few things of that nature. We will go to our favourite segment and discover some answers. We've had a couple of questions, a couple of things we brought up. There was a very interesting article that was brought to my attention today from the in the Australian Financial Review. So Dean Stonehouse, who was a guest last week, and he gave us some fabulous information last week. So he sent me this article, which we'll have a look at tonight. And we'll, as I say, we'll discover some answers. And, of course, Oscar's favourite little segment, What's on the Notice Board? And I've got a couple of little doozies for you. We will also have a look at the property headlines if we get the opportunity. And, of course, we always finish on an if question. So that's pretty much what's ahead. But before we do, I'm going to beat the buzzer tonight, and I'm going to get and do our disclaimer, which is really, really important. So for those who need to know, the information in this podcast will be regarded as general advice. Your personal objectives, needs, and financial circumstances were not taken into account when preparing this content. We always advise and recommend you seek personal, professional, and financial advice tailored to your specific individual needs before making financial, property, and investment decisions. And as we emphasise every week, very, very, very important. Mate, good to see you. A big week, big weekend. There's been a lot of publicity with regard to the grand final of football. How's your week, your weekend? What's new?
Mate, thanks for having me once again, and welcome to all the viewers. Welcome to the listeners as well. It's been a great week on the tail end of a long weekend, a monumental long weekend for us over here in WA. Obviously hosting the AFL Grand Final, which might and most likely will be the only time that we ever do it. But I think Perth put on an amazing show, and I think the rest of the country thinks that Perth put on an amazing show. So, and what a great result for the Melbourne Football Club as well. And other than that, the few days before the AFL Grand Final, well, there was lots of activities through the city. There was certainly an AFL Grand Final buzz around the whole of Perth. I really think there was around the whole of Perth. And certainly in the real estate industry, both in the selling field, but also in the rental field, it's been a really, really busy time. So TV, in terms of the spring selling season, we're well and truly into that. that, and when I get into some stats shortly, I'll back that up anecdotally, but also from a rental point of view. I wouldn't say that we have a spring selling season or a spring rental season, but we're just continuing with a very, very high level of demand for very few properties in the rental market. So lots to talk about today. Over the next 45 minutes, pretty consistent trends as we've had all year. But if anything, it's probably heating up a little bit.
Hey, question I will have you. I did experience the AFL Grand Final day, which was pretty special. But
yes,
something that intrigued me while I was sitting there pre-game and absorbing it all and enjoying every bit of what was going on was, what impact do you think the mileage an event like that would have with regard to WA and the real estate market? You know, it puts us up back, although as much as we weren't already on the map. Does that expand our awareness of WA and how good it really is? Does that give us that bit more? Do you think that can drive things that little bit more? Not that we need to be driven anymore, but you know what I'm saying?
I really think it does, TV. And from a national perspective, but also from an international perspective as well, because the spotlight was clearly on WA. It was clearly on Perth City and obviously Optus Stadium and everything. So, and probably even the few days before that for any of the events that were happening and were also live streamed back to places like Victoria. Just having a greater awareness of what Perth has to offer, the ability to put on such an amazing event, and then obviously the lifestyle that we all know in WA here that we have, which typically can be pretty relaxed. So I could only see that everything that came out of the AFL Grand Final would be positive news for Perth and for the whole of WA. And from a property point of view, the only thing I could see that would come out of that would be at some point in time a greater level of demand, and the supply will be what the supply is. So, all in all, long way of answering that question, but I see it as very positive for the WA property market.
Yep, and that's how I saw it. I was looking there and I thought, wow, this has got to have an impact. This has got to be a positive. Although I did read somewhere did I see or read something where they felt that perhaps there weren't enough things done to drive that. But I thought surely just the television exposure and the success of the event, etc. And I would imagine there's probably the best part of 75 odd people involved in one club and another 75 in the other. There's 150 plus people. They would probably talk about how good their experience was for the last two. And the Melbourne footballers, I don't know about the Bullies, but the Melbourne footballers are still here till Thursday.
Are they? Right.
Yeah.
And in fact, I mean, I was thinking that Melbourne obviously will hang around for a bit. But I was wondering when the Bulldogs might actually head home. Well,
was it today or yesterday they went and had their vax because they all got vaccinated yesterday. Here in Perth.
Yesterday.
So, that in Perth. So, I don't know what the story is there, but I was quite intrigued. I didn't realise they were around that. They're spending plenty of money. I know that.
The other thing also to keep in mind is now that the event has been such a big success, Tourism WA and the likes can turn all the footage, all the coverage, all the feedback from that into a great forward moving tourism and advertising campaign for WA, whether that be this year or whether it be next year. But certainly some great material would have been captured over the course of the last few days.
Yep, for sure. Hey, I think it's probably unless you've got something else in our. I think we should perhaps just go straight to it. Go to what really matters most. And I think we should go to OD Stats and let's review and have a look what's going on with the rental and the property market.
Okie doke. Straight into it, TV. There's a bit to cover, mate, and certainly some trends that I'm seeing. So I'm not just reporting the same strong conditions, albeit that the conditions in the rental and the sales market, they are very strong, but I'm also seeing some movement as well. And by that, I mean, we've been talking about the spring selling season for a good couple of months prior to the start of September. And right now, we're basically at the end of September. So we've got some data here now that we can actually see what the spring selling season does to our local property market. So in Perth, in the last 7 days, bearing in mind that it was a long weekend as well, but and the AFL Grand Final distraction, in the last 7 days, there's been 1,074 sales. Now, 4 weeks ago, which takes us right to the very beginning of September, in fact, practically the very end of August, 4 weeks ago, there was 910 sales in that week from 4 weeks ago. So even a month down the track, or 4 weeks down the track from where we were 4 weeks ago, we're up 15% in volume. So, and that's raw data. That's anecdotal data. It's a very true stat that from the start of the month to now, pretty much the end of the month, the volume of transactions have increased 15%. Will that trend continue? I don't know. I'll tell you next week and next month. But right now, transactions are definitely up 15%. Compared to this time last year, there was 828 transactions in the same week last year. So again, spring selling season last year, this very same week, there was 828 12 months ago. And as I said, currently there was 1,074. So we're actually 23% above where we were at in exactly the same week last year. So no question, the spring selling season is not a myth. It's not something that real estate agents just say. It really does mean something. There's a few more sellers around, but there's plenty more buyers around, and the weather is very conducive to getting out there and seeing properties in a really, really great light. So no surprises there in our spring selling season. Listings are definitely down. We're just over 8,300 listings at the moment, and that's well down from where we need it to be. We ultimately need it to be between 11 and 12,000. That's where we see that there's a level of equilibrium between the amount of demand and the amount of supply, but we haven't been anywhere near that figure for quite some time, for a good 18 months. So right now we're just over 8,300 listings. Last week it got down to just under 8,300 listings. All in all, we've still got a great shortage of listings. 12 months ago in the same week, there was 10,691 listings available in Perth. And that therefore represents a 21.5% drop in the number of listings today as compared to where we were at 12 months ago. And bearing in mind, 12 months ago, we were at spring selling season. We had just obviously lived through 6 months of COVID, and we were trying to work out what COVID's actually going to do to our state and I guess the country. But yeah, now we've learned a lot more about that 12 months down the track. So those stats there just paint a very, very strong sales market that in the next month or two really doesn't look like leveling off. If anything, it might actually ramp up a bit more. Rental market is still quite consistent to the way that it's been over the last few weeks. 676 rentals in Perth leased in the last 7 days. The same week last year, there was 829 rentals leased. So our volume is down there. But as I've mentioned before, it's not because there aren't the tenants around and because people aren't after the rental properties that we've got, but there just has been a depletion in the amount of rental stock, and hence there's just not as many properties to lease to have that higher volume. So that by no means means that the gust is coming out of the rental market. From a supply point of view.
Sorry to interrupt you, but I will. It reminds me of a question that was asked of me today, which I'll keep for our discover the answers later on. But it's relative to what you just mentioned.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Rental supply. So we've got 2,279 listings, rental listings available. And just as a point of comparison, I mean, that's way too low. That's definitely a shortage. It's definitely under a 1% vacancy rate. And this time, 12 months ago, there was 3,028 listings available, which again is quite a shortage. But as at today, we've got 24.7% less rental stock than where we were at this time last year.
24.7%.
Than where we were at last year. Now, we all know that last year we knew that we were heading into a rental crisis. There was the moratorium on rental increases and also evictions. And so the market almost was thrown a life jacket, I guess, and it had to tread water for a few months through till the end of March until that rental moratorium and the eviction moratorium was lifted, which was at the end of March this year. And since then, the market's been able to revert back to, I guess it's, unobstructed market conditions. And as I said, so right now, as at today, there is just a major rental shortage going on, and it's almost 25% worse off today than where we were at 12 months ago. And that is for a couple of reasons. One is there's high demand, but another very significant factor, TV, that we've discussed is that when you've got investors that are selling their investment properties, so they've held properties over the last 5 years, but they haven't done what they wanted them to do, they've now seen an opportunity in a rising selling market. So if they can get their money back or maybe make a little bit of money, they just want to basically sell out. But the problem being is that those properties that they're then selling are not getting bought by investors. They're getting bought by owner-occupiers. So that means that we're actually losing more rental stock in a market where we just didn't have space to do that anyway. So it's hard going for renters. It's hard going for buyers. It's very much a landlord's market, and it's very much a seller's market. So we'll see where we go for the next week.
With regard to what you're just saying, and to put that, rather than suggest that's just stats, I've had 4 people alone in the space of the last 5 days who've contacted me where they've just going to ask me questions associated with the fact they're going to put their rental property on the market.
Their rental property on the market?
Yep. They're going to sell.
Right.
Right.
Oh, they're going to sell their rental property.
Yep. They're getting out.
Yeah.
They're going to do whatever they can do. And they've decided that they would prefer to cash themselves up. They're at a stage in their lives where they're going, people saying, and one guy today said to me, TV, everyone's saying to me, I should look, get into real estate, and he said, I'm out of real estate. He said, I'll have my house that I live in, but other than that, I don't need to hang on to real estate any longer at my stage in life. And so it's really probably backs up what you're saying. And that's just 4 or 5 people in the space of the last 5 days or so that have contacted me direct to run some questions past me about a range of things that they wanted to discuss before they've made their decision.
Yeah.
But they pretty much made their decision.
Yeah. Look, so I'm not surprised at all to hear that. On one hand, when I do know of the investor interest that there is in WA or that there is in Perth, the bulk of it seems to be coming from the eastern states because they do see good opportunity here in compared to the rest of the country. They see good opportunity here in terms of what makes a good real estate investment. And obviously we've comparatively have got low prices compared to over there. We've all got the same interest rates, which are as low as we'll ever see them, really. And our rental market over here is very good, which means that they can actually earn a good rental return. So those 3 ingredients make for a very good investment property decision for our eastern states people, and very little, I think, investment from people that are already in WA buying their next property and then their next property after that. But the other thing, TV, with that, it always goes in swings and roundabouts. And, at some point in time, and hopefully sooner rather than later, at some point in time, there's been a wave in the last 12 months or 18 months of people selling their investment properties. And also, I know quite a few real estate officers, when this topic comes up about people selling their rental properties, the principals or the good selling agents are basically saying, look, I understand and everyone else is doing it, but right now, are you sure you want to do that? And the reasons being is, number one, the interest rates, the cost of money is very cheap. Number two, your rental return's really good and your vacancy is just going to be low. But number three, most real estate agents really feel that we're at that lower end or at the bottom part of our upswing curve in terms of prices going up. So, and we've waited a long time to get to this point. So wouldn't you be better off letting your investment property do what the reason why you bought it in the first place, and that is for it to go up in value? Wouldn't you be better off sitting at least for another 12 months and just wait and see what happens by the end of 2022? And if you've made some money, good. You know that your rent would have come in, and you know that interest rates are probably going to be the same. So why wouldn't you ride it out a bit longer? So I know that a lot of real estate agents have been talking to prospective sellers about that with some level of success, but there are some people, like you said, that have just made up their mind.
We've mentioned on 2 or 3 episodes ago, probably regularly over the recent episodes, about the affordability of WA, and not just Perth, but WA as a whole. And then I happened to read in the real estate section of the West Australian this weekend, albeit I didn't get to that until this morning or last night. But there was reference there about the affordability of WA. There was the affordability of buying in Perth, etc., etc. And then I also came across an article that was suggesting that some of the savvy investors from the East Coast are targeting smaller capital cities and major regional locations, and more particularly WA and Queensland are logical, and WA in particular is a logical target because, as you'll recall, back in mid-2000s, 2012, 2013, 2014, our values were up near Sydney. So
what?
There was one stage there where we were way up when it came to our prices. We don't forget that period there. That went crazy, if you may recall, back then. But now they're considering the situation to saying, well, you know what, WA, and there's some locations around that are worthwhile investing, and it's affordable, and which is something we've been saying. But I read this article only the other day, and I thought that's intriguing. And similar situation was being expressed by Damien Collins, the president of REWA in the West Australian on Saturday, and I thought that was really, really of interest. But they're certainly suggesting, when it comes to investors, if you want to buy something Sydney and Melbourne, you're looking at above $1 million, whereas you can buy property here. 54% of investors said Brisbane is the capital city with the most investment potential, up from 36% compared to the last survey in 2020. And investors continue to tip metropolitan markets 50% over regional, and coastal markets 12%. And they were suggesting that Perth, WA, was an ideal market. Although obviously before the pandemic it was off the boil, but they're now seeing it as an opportunity.
What was that very, very first stat that you said, that Brisbane's increased from 30-something% to 50%? Yeah,
so there was the statistic was provided that investors continue to tip metropolitan markets 50% over regional 25%, and coastal markets 12%, as offering the best investment prospects.
Yeah, sorry, I thought you said something about Brisbane being more favourable than any other city.
Yeah, 54% of investors said Brisbane is the capital city with the most investment potential.
Right, gotcha. Wow.
Right.
That's where your money should be, hey?
So that's where, and certainly the situation that's going here, as I say, it's being recognised as being affordable, and WA, and in particular Perth, is certainly seen as one of those markets that you can buy yourself a pretty handy investment in Melbourne and Sydney.
Yeah.
We just had Dane, who sent us a hello, and he made reference to the mining boom. And obviously that's a good point, Dane, with regard to the mining boom and what impact that's having on WA, particularly with the iron ore prices fallen by the wayside in a big hurry. We talk about the opportunities here in WA. What I know, we were talking about this a few episodes ago about the mining industry and employment. Does that change now?
You asking me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Does that change now with a question?
Yeah. Well, I didn't know if you're asking Dane or whether you're asking me.
No. That's Dane's made comment, and I'm just asking that question to you because we have made mention about that in the past.
Yeah. Look, we have. I am flabbergasted is probably the right word to see what the iron ore price has done over the last month. Like just can't believe what it's done, and I don't think many people saw that coming. It went well over $200 a ton, probably no one expected it to stay at that level. But to now, is it back under 100? Back under
I haven't
$100?
checked. I haven't checked.
Yeah.
I haven't checked.
Well, it's way down low.
Yep.
And does that affect the viability of the mining projects? Of course it does. Therefore, does that affect employment? Does that affect demand for housing? Does that affect demand for services? Of course it absolutely does. And we all know, and we learnt last time from when we had a mining boom, that when you're looking at property prices, for example, and we've seen massive increases in property prices in the Pilbara regions, in Port and South Hedland, also through Karratha, through Newman as well. And that has largely been because of an increase in mining activity, and therefore an increase in demand for workers, and you've got to house the workers. So we've seen property values really escalate, not to that level that they did back in our first boom, but certainly on the way. They're certainly on that same path. And if I was a holder of one of those properties now, just watching what the iron ore price is doing, I'd certainly be a bit nervous. I don't think anyone needs to panic or just put the for sale sign up or anything. I'm not suggesting that, but I certainly would be a bit nervous watching the volatility and the speed in which the iron ore price has fallen off a cliff in the last month. So yeah, that'll be very, very interesting to see what happens over the next month. I think the news reported just tonight that the iron ore price did bounce just overnight. So it bounced back up 5%, which is quite a bit. If I was a property owner and I had bought a property specifically in one of those areas where we see a great deal of volatility, and when prices go up, it's happy days. But when prices fall and fall quickly, you don't want to be holding the baby.
Well, I certainly know and can assure you, and I'm sure you are no different. I've experienced and had clients that went through a lot of pain, massive pain, particularly in areas, for those that don't know what we're talking about when we say the Pilbara, we're talking about areas like Karratha, Port Hedland in particular, and Newman, as you mentioned. Those areas there that our northwest, our Pilbara region, and those areas there, they went through a massive drop in values, and there was a lot of people in a lot of pain. And I've had some clients of mine experience firsthand. And of course, now those markets changed, and rents were starting to go up again, and values starting to go up. So it is volatile. But I can also say there's a particular member on this broadcast who happens to sit alongside me or opposite me or wherever he is. And he made mention of the Big C, if you may remember correctly. And he made mention of that some months ago, back in before Christmas, and again in the new year in our early episodes. And we highlighted that because remember the impact it was having on our wine industry and the various other bits and pieces. And meanwhile, the iron ore was going crazy. So, very, very interesting. Very interesting as to what's going on and what impact that will have.
I'm glad you brought that up, TB, because I haven't been thinking about it that much for, I guess, just over the last couple of months. But just looking at how much impact China does have and what happens over there in China in terms of its development and in terms of it being a developing nation and its demand for obviously a lot of the things that we've got over here in Australia, or rather in WA. It really does play a massive part in terms of our economy, and we've seen that just with the iron ore over the course of this year. So, and I can't remember the name of that massive. They've got a massive property fund over there, which it sounds like is about to go broke. And I just can't. Have you seen that in the news?
Yes. I'm trying to
I
think
just can't
what that
remember
was.
the name of it right now.
Yep.
But it doesn't sound like there's going to be a government bailout there, but it sounds like there's going to be a hell of a lot of pain for people that are holding those properties. So China really does have a massive impact on what happens over here in our WA economy. I'm glad you raised it again, because I think overall, I mean, COVID has dominated play everywhere around the world, I guess. But economically, China has certainly had a big part to play this year.
I suppose countering that is that we're expecting a bumper crop season. We're expecting that to be really something special. Although it was interesting when I was in Geraldton last week and I spoke to a few of my farmer friends, and the issue was they had so much good rain early on that and I think I mentioned this in our last episode, but the rain has been such at a point where the roots haven't gone deep, and therefore they haven't had as much rain up there in the Midwest areas. And of course, getting a bit dry, and they're starting to get a bit wilt a little bit. So they wouldn't want, they need some backup rain just to help that a little bit like your lawn. If you keep on watering it, it doesn't go deep, and of course then it suffers during the summer season. So your crops are a bit like that. That being said, they're expecting to be a pretty bumper season, which will, I think, help offset perhaps any downside to the mining industry. Perhaps our rural sector will help the cause, and of course building is still going gangbusters. So there's still some good things, and people are still struggling to get staff. That's still an issue as well. So all those things, it'll be just, I suppose, it's going to be very interesting as going to what's going to happen with border controls. Border issues are still something that I feel we need to be somewhat careful, because we could get caught out here badly if we're not smart.
I reckon it'll all be sorted out by the end of the year, by Christmas time.
I don't think there's a choice. Think there's a choice. Really don't. The other question that I wanted to raise with you, as we said, our topic was to do with the up and away. But where that was generated from is that it was and we talk about listings. I read an article I get from CoreLogic, and they wrote an article the other day, and it made reference to the fact that every Australian capital city has seen a lift in the number of new real estate listings over recent weeks. This was as of the 23rd of September, with some of the largest listing increases recorded in those capitals navigating lockdown. Despite this, the new listing trends remain below the 5-year average in every capital apart from Adelaide, Perth and Darwin. And they are saying that while new listings have since lifted by 9.8%, this is nationally, the number of new listings is currently minus 21.6% lower than the recent high in March, and minus 3.9% below the 5-year average for this time of year. And they are suggesting that Perth is tracking 7.9% above the 5-year average and up 18.3% compared with the same period last year. Now, that seems to be contradictory to what you're telling me.
Yeah, no, it is. I listened to all the different stats that you just said then, and some of them make sense to me. For example, an increase in listings in the lockdown cities. Of course, that would make sense because there's people there that need to sell properties, but unfortunately the buying side of it is quite difficult when you can't get out there and show people properties. But so I can understand why there's a spike in listings over there. But categorically, in terms of listings and this is information that you've just read from CoreLogic, which looks at things on a national basis. My information I get is taken from REWA, which is the Real Estate Institute of WA, and those statistics are compiled week in, week out. So my statistics are basically saying that the listings in Perth as at today is 21.5% less than where it was at this time last year in the same week. So we're 21.5% less listings on the market than where we were at 12 months ago.
Yep.
And that's like totally different to what the CoreLogic data suggests.
Yeah, well, even with they've got these graphs that I had a look at, and we're steepening up this way compared to everybody else.
You know what, TV? If you want to believe CoreLogic, mate, you go right ahead and believe CoreLogic. But
no, I'm just giving you some information. I've done a little bit of research. I've been out there and doing some heavy lifting, and I just thought, well, that's a good point, because that's just interesting and it goes to show where you need to be a little bit careful with regard to statistics. They can be relative, but you need to be, I suppose, balanced with your views, and ensuring that you look behind, as we keep on saying. That's why we do Property Avenue WA. I mean, this is your avenue to matters in WA, and that's what our focus is. And so we're probably on the ground a bit. We do our darndest to be in touch. We're both in different industries, and we're in within the property world, but we're also in touch with a variety of people across the board. So it's really intriguing then to read some things and you go, oh, I'm not quite sure that's really WA from what we're experiencing. So it's certainly it's a busy time this time of the year. And I had someone the other day was telling me, when you referred back to the mining industry, I had someone ring me concerned because they were saying that one of their mines out Walloona way is shut down because of the price.
Yeah.
So that will impact on a lot of people when it comes to employment, not just those that are working on the mine, but it'll impact on those in logistics. It'll impact those associated with machinery and mechanical side and fuel side, and so there'll be that domino effect, and it'll impact on those communities in that region out there towards Walloona. For those that don't, who are in another part of Australia and don't know where Walloona is, get your map out and have a look. It's sort of northeast of
nowhere.
Middle of nowhere, yep, but northeast of Jordan, and it is been that area, Mount Magnet, Yalgoo. It has been rocking. We talk about Karratha and Port Hedland a lot, but all that area through there as well. Busy places. So interesting stuff when it comes to real estate. Not necessarily the place that you would
retire.
No, well, yeah, some people do. Some people enjoy it. Magnificent evenings, great sunsets, and great for wildflower season. And yeah, some people like that bit of space.
Yeah, maybe yourself and Jude. I can see you and Jude retiring there, mate.
Yeah, I wonder if she's listening. So that was the story with regard to that. The other thing that I was going to mention to you, I think we might revert to. We've covered that. Have you got anything else to cover with regard to that side of things?
No, mate. I think the stats are very self-explanatory, and hold on to your hats as we now move into October and then November. I think our real estate market is going to get hotter and hotter.
I'm going to discover the answers. Oh, you love the jingle. Just people can't see us when they when they listen to a podcast. One question that was raised with me today, in fact, was that, and this is really one for you, because the question was raised with me to say, TV, I bought a house and it's settled, and in fact, my girls at Champion Bay did the settlement, and but then he was in a rental, and his rental is due 17th, finishes up in mid-October sometime. And the question was, he said he thought with the way the rental market was going and because of such demand, he's had 5 different people that knew he was getting out asking him if they could take over his lease, or could he put in a good word with the property manager? Rah-de-rah. So he
Yeah.
went to his property manager, and the property manager said, "Nope, sorry, can't do anything about it. You'll have to hang in there until October, the lease." I thought that was a little bit surprising, considering there's such a demand for rentals.
Yeah.
What is the situation there? I know he's obviously trying to cut his lease off before it's finished, but I would have
Yeah.
thought with this market they'd be happy to grab the property and get someone else in there.
Yeah, I would have thought so as well, TB. And look, there's always two sides to the story, and we don't know the
Of
other
course,
side.
true.
But yeah, but what I would say is that this market, a break lease situation is not a problem for a landlord, and it's not even a problem for a property manager. You've got any number of people that are wanting to take on the property, as we know, as we've just discussed in the rental market, and sometimes they might want to take it on at better conditions or a higher price as well. So which might be of greater benefit to the landlord than hanging on to the current tenant for another 3 or 4 weeks. So my first reaction to that is the property manager could help out, could help the current tenant out and release them from their lease obligations early. But by the same token, the property manager has to make sure that anyone going into the property, whether it's friends of the existing tenant or just new people, they have to do their homework on the new people coming in as well, just to make sure that those people are going to be doing the right things by the landlord. So conceptually, I can't see a problem with it. I think that your inquirer has got a reasonable case. But there are a few things for the property manager to consider, but no roadblocks, that's for sure.
Hey, I know before we went live, you also had a question that had been raised, and you said you might just make mention of it. A situation with property and going on the market.
Well, look, it was just we were just chatting about. Are you talking about the sale?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, well, we were just talking about how hot the market is at the moment, and a friend of mine was selling a property today, obviously during the spring selling season that we're talking about, and the owner's expectation and the market expectation almost was at around about 1.15 million. Let's just call it 1.15 million. And the property sold tonight via an online auction process for about $100,000 more than that. Or I think it might have been like $110,000 more than that. So good property, great location, desirable location, and all that sort of stuff. But that's the sort of stuff that happens in the Perth property market at the moment. But it's also the sort of stuff that happens during our spring selling season. So it's a good result a good result for everyone. A good result for the real estate agent that worked hard. A good result for the owner, and also a good result for the buyer as well, because they secured the property that they really wanted in a pretty competitive environment. So everyone was a winner.
Our values at a point, we still, I know we were talking previously with regard to values, and you talk about a situation like that, but our values are still not, have they got to the 214 levels at this point, or are they still well below that at this point? Or are they on a par, or they vary?
Yeah, I don't think that the data's out yet to say whether we have or we haven't, TB. But what I do know is that our demand has been, and the volume of our transactions has been very consistent. And often people are offering over the asking prices. So if we're not there yet, we wouldn't be too far away. But I just don't think that the data is out there yet to conclusively say whether we are or we aren't. But it's only a matter of time, mate, because those 2014 prices are fixed. That's the history. And our market that we've got at the moment is certainly moving forward with price growth. So it's just a matter of time.
Are we also seeing a market where the sellers are becoming our buyers?
Our sellers are becoming our buyers. In many cases, yes. Yeah, in many cases, but people sell for a variety of different reasons, whether it's downsizing. As we've discussed, a number of people have sold their investment properties because they just don't want the hassle or the complication in their life anymore. And we've had people obviously that sell. Sometimes they need bigger properties. Sometimes they need a lifestyle change as well. So, our sellers can definitely become our buyers as well. But normally, our sellers will have become a buyer before they actually become a seller. That's definitely the better way to do it, because otherwise you can become a seller and your property sells so quickly. And if you haven't actually bought anything yet, you can be under pressure, or you can be out on the street, or you have to head to the rental market and compete with everyone else for a very short amount of rental. So where possible, a seller should be a buyer first before they actually sell their property.
Well, I've got a family member, a son, in fact, and they have been told that the property is being sold, and they have got some 30 odd days to get out. They're renting, and they're under a bit of pressure and a bit of stress to relocate. I see that firsthand with regard to that. And as I've suggested, maybe it's time that you entertain looking at buying. So, and you won't have that stress, because this is not the first time that that's occurred.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So, I'm hearing that story literally every day, TV. Every time I had a home open, I had one at 5 o'clock tonight, and I've got one at 5 o'clock tomorrow night. At least a handful, maybe even as many as half of the people that are coming to my home opens are coming with the same story, and that is the property that they're currently in is being sold. Genuinely sold.
Yeah. Oh yeah, same. Yeah. It's and it's quite stressful, and I understand that, because not only the packing up process, but then where am I going to go?
Yeah.
Because everyone knows what's going on. I think we've discovered a couple of answers there. I think what we should do is go to your favourite segment.
I love the notice board.
What's on the notice board? We look for quirky things. We look for funny things. We look for anything, really. If you've got something that you would like us to tell us about, and we'll put it on the notice board. It might be the kid's fate. It might be something you're doing with your business. You might be doing a special presentation. You might be whatever it is. It might be a golf club event. It could be anything. What's coming up now, we're starting cricket season, so you might have the kids' T-ball, whatever the case may be. We're happy to put it on what's on the notice board. But we also have a few little quirky things. And I will tell you that today, now, if you read this, if you saw this in writing, it's actually International Poke Day. But it's not like poke. It's actually pronounced Poke Day. And Poke Day is a Hawaiian food. And it's like how would you say? It's a bit like
ice cream.
No, it's a raw fish and things of that nature. It's pretty yummy. It's well, and the ingredients include soya sauce, fish, eggs, wasabi, and green onions. It's a bit of a Japanese style thing, really. But
that's fascinating.
I thought you'd find that. So through the years, immigrants from Korea, Japan, and the Philippines added their own ingredients to poke. And these ingredients I've just told you about. And so every the 28th of September is World Poke Day. Poke, but spelt Poke. And to give you fresh tuna steaks cut in cubes, soya sauce, green onions, sesame seed oil, toasted sesame seeds, crushed red pepper, finely chopped macadamia nuts, and you have got yourself a treat. There you go.
That sounds fantastic.
That's today.
Absolutely brilliant.
I know. I knew you'd be excited. And tomorrow is World Heart Day. Now, this is serious, because World Heart Day, did you know the last statistic that I looked up, 17.9 million deaths per year through heart disease, cardiovascular
17.9 million?
Yes, a year.
Wow.
That's worldwide. So World Heart Day is obviously an awareness of health, and particularly heart. And so that's tomorrow, the 29th of September, and that's done every year. So that's that. So we do get a bit serious. We do have a bit of fun. We do get a bit serious. And then the other thing that I thought I'd tell you about, because I thought this is relative, on the 30th of September is International Podcast Day.
Is it?
International Podcast Day. And the idea of International
Wow.
Podcast, I knew you'd be excited. The idea of International Podcast Day is so that you could promote the podcast, because podcasts, it all started in 2014. So it's not that long ago. So we're in
Really?
Yep, they started promoting it, and it's become a big thing. And so tell your friends, pass it around. So we will start we need to get ourselves organised and promote ourselves a bit better, don't we? We're probably only talk.
I would do, but I
only
don't have any friends.
We're probably only talking to our wives. Anyway. So World Podcast Day, that's on the 30th. And I would just also like to, I'm self-indulging here, but on the 13th of October, we're going to do property, well, not that day, but that week, we're going to be doing Property Avenue WA via Cape to Cape, because your co-host is going to walk Cape to Cape with a mate, 125 kilometres. We're going down to south, and we're going to do the Cape to Cape. So I did a 13K walk, just not quite 13Ks yesterday. And and so I'm training, and my physio gave me the all clear. So we're awesome. Doing the Cape to Cape walk, and I'm going to I'm going to see if we can catch up with a few real estate people while I'm down there, and see if we can have a bit of a chat to them. So
brilliant, mate. Proud of you. Proud. Very proud.
I knew you'd be excited. So that's what do we say? That's what's on the notice board. Right. How are we going for time? Quickly. Oh, we're going pretty well.
Bedtime.
Would you like to know about what's going on property headlines?
Yes.
We'll cover a few property headlines. There's been a few good articles. I just spent a little bit of time getting myself organised. I should be a DJ, do you reckon? The one article that took my fancy was in the ABC online, where it was suggested, the headline was, we've got a guest. You didn't tell me about a guest.
Hey, Sash. Look. Sash.
Here's our mascot. For those that can't see this, Oscar's got his dog in line. I should take a photo of that and put that on our account. There you go. I've done that. COVID provided a real-life experiment on house price theory and what makes owning a home unaffordable. And the decision, in March last year, Australia's international border was slammed shut. The decision wasn't made without good reason, but it had massive economic ramifications. Employers could no longer access the steady stream of skilled and unskilled workers they relied upon. University couldn't bring in international students, and the forecast for the housing sector was bleak. For years, conventional wisdom among many economists, inside and outside government, was that population growth was at least a significant force behind rising house prices. But when the migration tap was turned off, while property prices initially slumped in some areas, they are now roaring. Closing the international borders was the sort of experiment economists had only ever carried out with a spreadsheet, never expecting it to actually happen. The results surprised a few, and what really drives house prices up, and a whole range of things that influence property prices and rents too. The question for economists and policymakers has always been which have the strongest influence and which can be adjusted if prices need to be reined. And they're suggesting one key influence is interest rates.
No question. Yeah. And just imagine if the floodgates were open, if the borders were open, and you added the already low interest rates, and created even more of a competitive environment with people migrating.
Yep. Well, we've been saying that, and it's it's very, very very interesting as to where how that reads, and I found that quite interesting. What was the other one that I saw that intrigued me? There's been a few. Oh, did you read the one about there was another one in there about scams. This time last year was 175 million, I think, in scams. Already already it's 211 million.
Wow.
And there would not be a day go by that I don't get a message telling me
Yeah.
that I've got to pick up a parcel or
Yeah. Me too.
everybody I speak to. So if you're listening out there, tell your friends, tell your mums, tell your dads, please, please, please be careful and get proper advice or get direction. Just don't take it. It's just so easy. You click on it innocently, not
Yeah.
thinking. We're all busy,
Yeah.
and bingo, it's just not worth it.
Yeah.
The other one that I thought was really interesting, this is a little bit, where the man discovered a doll with a creepy note inside the new home's wall. Did you see that?
No, what was that?
A British man, he made a bizarre discovery inside the walls of the home he just purchased. And in there, obviously, it appears that someone's made an elaborate prank left by the previous owner. But it read to the reader, the new house owner, "Thank you for freeing me." And there was this doll inside this wall with this note telling that the new owner, the past owners didn't like them. So all they did was sing to me merry. And it was sickening, rah-de-rah-de-rah. So they found this note that was, "My name is Emily. My original owners lived in this house in 1961. I didn't like them, so they had to go." All they did was sing and be merry. It was sickening. Stabbing was my choice of death for them, so I hope you have knives. Hope you sleep well.
Very good.
It was a handwritten note with this crazy doll sitting in the walls of the thing. So there you go. That's there's a couple of little silly little headlines.
Very good.
And the world's safest city for 2021 revealed. Did you know that?
Nope.
Oh,
Detroit?
no. Copenhagen.
Oh, really?
Copenhagen has been named the world's safest city for the first time, scoring 82.4 points out of a possible 100. And Denmark capital jumped from eighth place in 2019 to the top of the list, largely thanks to the introduction of an environmental security section, which the city scored particularly well. Which I must get someone with regard to. There's a lot of talk at the moment about I've lost my train of thought. No. Climate change.
Yeah.
Be interesting with regard to where that goes with the construction of homes and things of that nature. So
yeah, I can tell you where it's going to go in terms of price.
Yes, yep, for sure. We're going very well tonight. I'm very impressed. But I think more importantly, no, it's not bedtime yet. But I am probably struggling because I've had a big couple of days, and I know you have. But I think it's time for you know what. It's the if question. It's the if question. I had a couple of choices tonight. Then I thought, you know what? I think I might go back to the grand final because it's been big. Now, considering the fact that you're not a drinker,
yes.
If you were one of the Melbourne footballers, or for that matter, don't worry about a Melbourne footballer, but you won the grand final and you were going out to celebrate, how do you reckon you'd be celebrating?
With a few drinks.
You reckon you'd be back on a few drinks? Do you reckon? Absolutely.
Yeah. I think I'd probably have a few drinks and see what else was being offered. But if I was one of the Melbourne, what an amazing thing that they did. So I think some events and some celebrations you can break all the rules. You can do whatever it is that you want.
as long as the behaviour is acceptable and not you're not going got too far. But I was just intrigued as to how I thought you might have got a bucket of KFC out and gone hard.
No, unless everyone else was doing the KFC as well, then maybe I'd do that. But I think KFC would be the morning after, or maybe the lunchtime after we did the all-night celebration. Yeah, well, if you ask me how I'd be celebrating, I don't think I'd be brave enough to do a Maxi Gorn and get a tattoo. But
I probably would go back to. I did enjoy a good party in my day, so I reckon I'd be celebrating, and I think I'd probably just be sticking to the beer. I wouldn't be going too far outside the beer sector.
Yeah.
But I noticed a couple of the boys dragged out a cigar, so maybe I'd be tempted to pull out a cigar, and I'd probably feel it the next day. But I think
it's a big, massive celebration, mate. You're not doing it every weekend. In fact, you're not even doing it every year. It's a bit of a one-off. So I think you can. I
don't know how they can back up day after day, though. I'd be a bit worried. I think.
Well, I used to be able to as a younger Turk. I don't know what I'd be now. I mean, I don't think I haven't been drinking for almost 4 years now, so I reckon I might have half a beer and I'd be anyone's. But back in the day, I could definitely back it up, as you know.
Mate, fabulous to have you back on board and having another week. I love Tuesdays. I really do enjoy doing what we do. We get a bit organised. There's a bit of chaos today, so we do apologise. It was a little bit higgledy-piggledy today, but we do. I think we've covered some good topics. We will have our podcast out tomorrow. If you've got any questions, please, Dane sent us made a mention today about the mining boom. If you've got any questions, you can send them through our Facebook page. We've got a Twitter account. We've got Instagram. We'd love to be having a part. We're going to try and push it. If you are listening, please spread the word and let people know that we've got a podcast. And every Tuesday, 7:45 WA time, we do a live stream. Thanks for joining us. If you were a part of it, OD, great to see you, bud. And I will catch up with you. I'll be in Geraldton next week. I've got to go to Geraldton.
I won't be.
No, but I'll be in Geraldton, so I'll give you an update of what's going on in Geraldton. Mate, take care and see you next week, if not before. I think everybody's watching